I got a comment recently on a video on my channel that is very irrelevant, but is relevant to my headcanon. It was on the Caden the Brave video, a little children's book I had made. I think the inception to my recent sort of delve into the AI stuff. And it has sat with me, not originally, but as I've dug more into Googling and going on Reddit looking for prompting and ideas to be like, how can I utilize ChatGPT and AI in general, the stuff that's available to me now, how can I integrate it into my work, or how do, in what ways can I continue to explore it? And the sentiment or the comments that I see on Reddit, mostly on these artistic threads, video game design and After Effects and editing subreddits, but also, more interestingly, some very pro AI type subreddits where people are asking questions of how they can incorporate AI into some level of creativity. There is such a sentiment of negativity and betrayal by artists, that as an artist, if you're even talking in any sort of a positive or accepting light about AI or generative assets, that you are betraying the artistic community, and that you're stealing jobs. And that makes me reflect on my own work because, again, very highly likely unrelated. I have lost 10 subscribers since, maybe the last 4 days. Again, likely unrelated, but there's kind of this narrative that I'm unintentionally building of like, is that why because I don't normally have that big of a fall off of subscribers. 10 subscribers is not a lot, but when you're only dealing with 2,000 and most people subscribe and never watch my stuff again and never think to unsubscribe or anything. I don't ever lose that many in that short of a time frame. And so I have to potentially invite the idea that maybe it's because of the talking about AI. It could more likely be that it's just my content is relatively boring for most people who jump in thinking it's going to be awesome, and then they have my content plaguing their stuff every day. But I think it's worth. I feel the need, whether it's to address this thought, or more importantly, just to take a moment of reflection to think about where do I stand on all this? Because I am pretty anti AI, but I'm really more anti marketing of AI. I think the technology is valid, and I think that it is doing a lot of really incredible things for data processing. We spent the last kind of since the 2010s, we have spent as a culture just gathering data. All the business models are just like, we are the best company because really secretly we're a tech company and we're gathering data. Whether that's, Stitch Fix or the DoorDash or Airbnb. I mean, their mission statements, they're the way that they garner venture capital is always, well, we're gathering so much data and our data is really refined and that's why we're going to be different. Even if they're just losing money hand over fist, that's always been sort of the excuse is like, yeah, we're losing money, but look at all the data we're collecting. And now we're answering that question of like, well, what do you do with all that data? Because it's not any realistic amount. You can't process big data as a one-to-one human entity. You need high-tech computation to be able to gather and process all that data. And now we're getting to where we have that. I think where I become negative about the subject matter is I still don't think that data is all that meaningful. And by meaningful, I don't mean, can it make you money? I mean, is it meaningful to the betterment of human society? No. I don't think so. I think we're getting sadder and depressed, and our sense of identity is being just twisted and thrown around like a rag doll. And we're finding ourselves feeling addicted and sad and unfulfilled. And I think a lot of that is because of not only the data that is being collected on us, but also the data that's being kind of regurgitated back at us through algorithms and statistics and pop science. And so I don't think that AI is necessarily this amazing thing as it stands now. Whether or not it does something amazing for us in the future, I think is pure speculation. And I don't think it's something worth getting all hyped up about. I don't ever think that technological speculation is something worth getting hyped up about, because if you look at any point in human history, our technological speculation has always been hype worthy, but it hardly ever plays out completely. And so, to circle back on the creativity aspect of it, we have all these incredible things that AI can do. It can communicate with us in a really relatable language sense, and it really can emulate humans pretty well in terms of communication, writing, a lot of levels of creativity, making music and generating illustrations, animations, like I said, or like I demonstrated a couple days ago. But it kind of is bad. I think that AI has yet to deliver something that is meaningful consumption. I think where all the money is speculating what it will do in the future, because right now, AI across the board, I'm talking about in these specific niches, but across the board, I don't think it's really contributed all that much. At least not positively. It's taking jobs, but that is on the behest of saving money. Just because we have AI can now take over 5,000 phone jobs, customer service phone jobs. When you call into Comcast, now you're talking to an AI model. I don't think you're getting better service. I think Xfinity is now saving money. And maybe I might argue that the betterment is that those jobs aren't available because those jobs suck, but we don't have anything meaningful to replace them. So it is kind of a net negative as it sits right now. And I feel that way about art. I as a artist, if I may use that term for myself, for the lack of a better word, as an artist, I don't feel that intimidated by AI art, because I don't see any AI art. I see AI slop. I see lots of content that is very clicky, very virality. But whether or not that virality, that viral video, whether it's fake or real, I still don't put a whole lot of positive value into it, because whether it's a real video of somebody doing something stupid or a fake video of someone doing something stupid, it's just money grab. It's not meaningful. It's not thoughtful. It's not long lasting. It's very shock value. It caters to the lizard brain, the spinal cord in us. And so even now, even though I've spent time, I've had various levels of these sort of, like, if you will call them aha moments of clarity about AI. The first real strong one was using the enhanced speech tool that Adobe had, which you could argue isn't even really truly, what like machine learning like we attribute to AI, but it was really advanced technology that they label as AI, or they would like you to, whether they directly or indirectly label it. That was a huge moment where I'm like, oh, holy cow. I have spent my whole career learning about mic technique and audio processing, and now I can just click a button and my god-awful audio sounds usable. But as I've used that now, it's been over a year, I believe, if I'm not incorrect, since I've been regularly having availability and using enhanced speech, I've come to realize that, no, it still kind of sounds bad. I still would prefer to have proper mic technique and clean, clear audio with a good microphone that is appropriate to the environment in which it's being recorded and all that. Because if I take really bad audio and put it into enhanced speech, it just sounds like audio that's been put through enhanced speech. Sounds very, let me put it this way. Auto-tune, or more appropriately, pitch correction, is a tool that can make anybody sound like a good singer. And it used to sound really obvious back, in Cher. Do you believe in love after love? Love after life, love after love, life after love, whatever. The Cher song. That was like its first huge commercial use of it. And then you think of like T-Pain or whatever. It's very stylistic. I wouldn't even say it's bad. It's just very stylistic. And now it sounds very dated. You hear that and it sounds very dated. But pitch correction in audio, in music, the music industry has come such a long way that now you might recognize it, but it's really hard to. So it's become really advanced. But there's still nothing quite like, nothing moving as a biological human as hearing someone who's just singing unfiltered raw into a microphone. I mean, you can tell that difference. You don't need to be knowledgeable, have the ear for it to recognize. There's just an X factor. It's like real flowers versus fake flowers. There's just an X factor to it. And AI art is very much in that phase of like, yeah, it does do the job, but it doesn't do the job very well. And it's very tasteless and it's very flatlining. And more importantly, in my recent experience, just as a layman, all these products are sold to. When I went to the Adobe Summit back in the fall, all of Adobe's messaging to sum up was like, look, you don't even have to know how to be an artist, and you're an artist now. And if you see a few examples, you're like, wow, so true. Wow, that looks like art. I can't make that, and now I'm making it. But after a while, you're like, why doesn't it? It's not as good. It's not as good as if I got like a really talented artist to draw this. It all looks the same. And also the user experience of creating it, like I've really felt in the last few days making this stuff, is like the animation that I did, the full like story animation I did with the girl and the knocking on the door and all that. It worked. The final product like works kind of if you really lean into the style of it, but that took a lot of iterations to create. That was a real pain in the ass. If I had the money, I would have absolutely rather preferred to hire an artist to create all those assets, and I could have been real specific, and it would have been a much less painful process. The reality is I don't have that money. So without AI, I wouldn't have made that product. And that's a little bit like music distribution. Previous to the internet, if you didn't have the money to publish an album, you just didn't have the opportunity to make that music. But now with, home digital studios and the internet, you can, it's lowered the bar for that. But just because you have all of these tools, and just because you have all of this opportunity to publish your music, doesn't mean your music is good. It just means you can now make music, period. You can just make music. In AI art, I can make an animation. Does not mean the animation is good. In fact, quite the contrary. And now that animation looks like AI generated animation. And so that's why when Adobe is talking about how, the future is this advertising, you can do all these campaigns. And it's like, as you're training this AI and as you're making it more ubiquitous and consumable, you're also training the public audience you're giving them more data to train their eyes off of. I think most people can tell, you hear people coming out of a movie theater and being like, oh, that script felt like it was AI generated, or this song is AI generated, or this art looks AI generated. And whether or not it is, the fact it's used as a roast, if something looks AI generated, it means it's bad and not worthy of real art. And so there's a concept there that I get a lot of, reassurance as a content creator, as an artist, as somebody who puts creativity through a certain medium, that while commercially my job can be duplicated, I can't be duplicated right now. Not saying forever, not even saying for 10 more years, but just right now, I cannot be duplicated. My voice, I can't even duplicate my own voice through ChatGPT when I specifically give it something. So for someone to try to copy my work through ChatGPT, I'm here to tell you it's just absolutely impossible right now. I don't even think it's going to be possible in the next few years, 5 years, 10 years even. Me personally, I think you might be able to close the gap a little bit, but just like the uncanny valley of animation, which references the closer you get you make animation to look real, the more uncomfortable it looks. Robots. The more you make a robot look realistic to a human, the more uncomfortable that looks to a human. So often in product design, you find it's better to make the robot look nothing like a human because people are much more comfortable with it. I think that's the same thing with like generative assets and creativity. Is the closer you get it to seeming identical to what a human can make, there's just an X factor that you're missing out. Again, do I think that will be the case for all of the rest of eternity? No, but I think that you're looking at it into the future is speculative. And I think speculation, like I said a few videos ago, is always wrong. Humans are horrible at speculating as to what the future will bring, especially when it comes to technology and advancement. And I think the marketing side of things, the OpenAI, the Google, the Meta, they are so convinced that the future of AI is going to come fast and with vengeance, and it's going to be quick, and they are the voices of authority because they have access to the technology and the developed technology and the undeveloped technology. So you feel a strong reason to believe that what they're saying is true. But I don't know if I believe that it's true, frankly, as of now. Again, I'm sure that could change. So what I'm saying is when I'm creating this AI, the reason I don't feel like I'm selling myself out, or I'm, ruining art, or that I'm, whatever. I'm not even going to make the argument that, hey, it's just a tool, because I get that using the tool is helping the cause to develop it and to bring on the artistic apocalypse. But I think that human artists have never really had job security, ever. I think it's a very exploitative job. It's a very, very risky business. It's not like creating pipes. If you're a metal technician and you know how to make a metal pipe, that is a profit that you can measure on a spreadsheet. If you're an animator, it doesn't even mean if you're the best, most creative, incredibly unique-minded animator on planet Earth, and you create a movie, that movie could still be a flop. There's no guarantee. Art is an inherently extremely risky investment. So therefore, there is a lot of incentive to try to pull the risk out of that. And the only way to pull risk out of that is to make it extremely calculated and predictable in terms of its creation. And the best way to do that is with a computer. However, we don't understand what it is that makes art enough to say that that you will one day be able to create that better than a human. We just don't know. And you also have to think about how, there's McDonald's, but that doesn't mean just because somebody could make the best tasting French fry, everybody who makes non-McDonald's French fries is now completely out of business. So I don't know. It's a hard problem to argue because it in order to argue it effectively either way, you have to have a ton of vindication about how the future is going to play out, and I don't think anybody can or really even should be trying to make that assessment. I think if you want to be upset about AI, I think rather than pointing it at AI, which is just the new step for the boot of capitalism to step on mankind's, the necks of the poor, frankly, be mad at that concept of the inequality of power shifting. And I don't think it's time to sound the alarm bells. And even if it is, I definitely don't think it's time to be coming after other artists who are exploring this as a tool, whether or not they have moral righteousness or not. I think that, I look at myself. Listen, hey, I can love my art and my self-expression all day long, but at the end of the day, I have to feed my family. And so for me to sit here and put my head in the sand and pretend that it's not as good as me and it'll never take over true art is stupid, because the businesses that I choose to work for and how hireable I am will change regardless of how much I want to sing that tune. And so I'm better off diving into it and understanding it and, having the opportunity to maybe get better at using it in a more holistic chance, because I have a choice with my own creativity of how I want to use AI. Some guy in a suit does not care about the artistic aspect. So it's better for me to try to get my hands all dirty with generative assets and generative AI before some guy in a suit, because I believe as of right now, and for I think a pretty fair look into the future, artists will still have they will be the better arbiter of progress exchange, or, like moving into the future. So, I'm rambling a little bit. It's really hard to get a cohesive thought around this, because again, it's a largely speculative thing, but it bums me out a little bit to see people say like, hey, look at this cool sprite that I made in ChatGPT, and people being like, you're disgusting for doing that. I mean, how old-fashioned can you possibly sound as an artist, I think it hits home a little bit for me, because I'm always the one, like, the Beatles, totally respect them. I don't really care about the Beatles, just being honest with you. But there's a lot of people who believe, like, the Beatles was the last good music, or the, classic rock was the last good music of all time. There's a lot of junk out now, believe me, because again, it's much more ubiquitous. It's much easier to put out music. But I think there's some insanely talented and innovative artists now who only have the opportunity to exist, and their creations only have the opportunity to exist because of the very technology that people claim has killed art, which I think is just so close-minded and stupid. But that's sort of my perspective of it. And so I feel like AI, while I'm much more hesitant because of the level of salesmanship that is happening from people who are just trying to make money, who are like invested in AI to be like, oh, it's the future, man. It does everything. It's perfect. It's going to take over company. And I look at all these companies who are like, we don't know what it is. We don't really know how to use it. We don't really know how to benefit us, but we're being told that it's the future. So we got to go all in. I think that's super misled too. So, like the idea that you're going to create a chat bot that will replicate the voice and the messaging of some sort of leadership in your company, and that's going to replace all communication from that leader. That's crazy to me to be doing now. Explore it, but to think that like, oh, once we implement this, it's just going to be profit from here on out. Because now, once we can have a message from the CEO every 15 minutes, we're just going to double our profit. Like, what is that idea? Who thinks that idea is good other than Sam Altman of OpenAI? You know what I mean? Like, who is this for? Like, who is half of the stuff that AI is making for? Because it's certainly not for the consumer. It's not even for the creator, because it requires them to learn all these new skills and to change their whole world belief. And so who is it for? And I think it's kind of just for the tech companies that are like aching for the next big speculative up in their make-believe stock money. And there's a real technology that underlines it. I mean, as evident, I'm able to create stuff that I couldn't have created 10 years ago. But what's the value of it? I don't think anyone knows. I don't think anyone knows. Even the companies that are making this stuff. OpenAI is just throwing spaghetti at a wall, hoping something sticks, So, yeah, I'm going to keep exploring it. I'm having fun. I really am. It's given me a little bit of a spark that, it's, as I think it was my brother that I was saying, it's not very often that I get a new piece of clay to mold around in my hands. And that's what this AI having access to the ChatGPT now has felt like. It just feels like a new piece of clay. Doesn't mean I'm going into this forever. I might want to keep playing with it for another day or 2 more weeks or 2 more years. I don't know. Or maybe it's something that I take on for the rest of my life. But there's a fall off for sure. It's not like it's like unlocking this like deep, unhinged creativity where I'm like, oh, I'm alive. Like, it doesn't feel like that. It just feels like, oh, this is pretty cool. What else can I make? Oh, yeah, that's cool. I think it's kind of easier to just do it this way, but this is kind of fun. I'll keep kind of, I'll do it this way some more. And, oh, here's an idea. I haven't thought about it this way. Let me make this. And that was kind of a pain in the ass, but it's cool. Maybe I could get better at that. It's this process. And I encourage anyone with any creativity, or let me put it this way. I encourage anyone who's alive to explore that for their own unique little corner of the world, because I think it also gives you a little control. Because I promise you, if you are afraid of AI, at least let's shrink it down a little bit. If you're intimidated by like a large language model like ChatGPT, go ask it a bunch of stuff that you know about, right? Go talk to it about your profession. And I guarantee you by the end of that conversation, you're going to feel a lot better about where you're sitting. Maybe not forever. Maybe you'll be like, oh, I'm good forever. You might not come away with that, but you're at least going to be like, oh yeah, it's cool, but it kind of sucks still a little bit. It's kind of wrong a lot, or misled a lot. And I feel really concerned, on that note for the future of education, not because like, oh, humans will just be dumb and will never learn. Well, that could happen. I think it's actually kind of likely that would happen, but I think that's kind of been happening for the way before even the internet. But I think education has dug its own hole that is so ripe for AI to be threatening to it, which is that you're only getting educated to get a job. I think education, especially higher education, for most of human history has had this prestige of being just to be a more intelligent person, a better educated person, full stop. Nothing more to it than that. Just to be able to look at a tree and to know how to think about that tree. That's what college has been. Philosophy has been about just how do I be a better thinker? And like, who was it? Was it Plato? Plato or Socrates? Some was like intimidated by the written word because it was like, well, memorization is the true form of intelligence or the true form of thinking or whatever. So higher education has historically been about just being a better person, being a deeper, like the pursuit of life and thought. But modern college is like, oh, go to school because you can make an average more of $1 million more a year. Go to school so you can get a better job, so you're more marketable, so you're more hireable. And the in-between is sort of like, well, whatever gets you the piece of paper. So as it gets harder to get a job with a college education, because college graduates are more ubiquitous, it also encourages like the path of least resistance, where it's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about actually thinking about the writing prompt that you have to respond to. It's just about getting a pass, just pass it. And then you can get your degree. But in the world that we are potentially leading into, which is that technology is devaluing the the necessity of humans in a broader sense, but in college education, the fact that that's devaluing. Now we were getting on the other side of education, we don't even get the job. So then now what is it all about? You know? And then you see courses of like how to prompt engineer, you know, where it's like, it's kind of encouraging you to not think for yourself, which again, maybe that leads to more stupid people, maybe not. But I think it is robbing education and humans and a sense of purpose from, I think it's robbing it of something really special, which is that, you know, pursuit of hard things, the most valuable aspect in the pursuit of a hard thing is the hard part, you know, the fact that there isn't always a point. There isn't always a payoff. Growth of the mind is in the struggle. And so, yeah, I think education is up against I think they are facing the biggest crisis with emerging thought technologies. And I think that they're really unwilling, because of the nature of education, which is to be the place of authority. You know, you have to be the keeper of the knowledge. That's what makes you an educational institute. I think they're really struggling with admitting that they have to give that authority up. And I think they've really struggled with that with the advent of the internet and are still struggling with it. But they haven't even come to terms with that, let alone what's coming down the pipeline. So, this was a long rant. This was a full-on podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. And I don't know, just a little bit of thoughts tonight. So thanks. Maybe you're on a drive and you listen to this, which is great. Also, this was all AI generated.